everyone, good morning. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Brittany Jones-Cooper, and today I'm sitting down with the cast from Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Based on the New York Times bestseller, the film follows Bernadette Fox, a once successful architect who abandoned her career and retreated from the world until a series of events leads to the adventure of a lifetime. Today I'm sitting down with director Richard Linklater and stars Cate Blanchett, Emma Nelson, Zoe Chao, Troian Bellisario, and Billy Crudup. But first, check out the trailer.
Morning, Lizzie.
Hey, Mom. Do you guys remember when you told me if I got perfect grades all the way through middle school, I could have anything I wanted?
I think it was to ward off any further talk of a pony.
Wanna know what it is?
I don't know. Do we?
A family trip to Antarctica!
Ponies are cute and maybe not as much trouble as we thought.
I was taken by her beauty and talent.
I'm accompanying the first graders.
That's a big deal, B. Can I come?
No, you wouldn't like it. The words are way too cute. You might die of cuteness.
Yeah, well, I want to die of cuteness. It's my favorite thing to die of cuteness. Something unexpected has come up. There's much more explanation coming, but I have this one shot. Just thinking about it's got my heart racing.
Bernadette?
You'll never guess what happened. She disappeared. Bernadette.
What?
She didn't just vanish. I'm gonna get my gear.
Bernadette!
Bernadette.
Oof.
Please put your hands together for Richard Linklater, Cate Blanchett, Emma Nelson, Zoe Chao, Billy Crudup, and Troian Bellisario. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
How you doing? I'm in such a good mood because I had a long travel day yesterday and I got home and I got to watch this film and it was so nice to watch and like enter this world. You really created a whole experience. So congrats on it. I think.
I thought you were going to say you fell asleep.
No.
So, you know, you
Yeah,
finally
like
got the
20
sleep
minutes
you
in.
needed.
Like, I don't care where Bernadette went. I'm just really tired. No, I really enjoyed it. It's such a great film. I think audiences are really going to connect to it because it's a fun film, but there's also some really important themes and things to talk about afterwards. So Richard, I want to start with you. Obviously, we know this was a best-selling book, but why was this something, because I know you also co-wrote the screenplay, why was it something that you wanted to be a part of?
God, it's just such fascinating, really complex characters, particularly Bernadette. But also, I think it's such an intense mother-daughter movie. And I have 3 daughters. I had 2 older sisters. I just kind of always had a front row seat to that mother-daughter relationship. So I always thought that was something. And then I guess also it's a portrait of a long-term relationship and also an artist who has kind of lost connection with their art. And it's about Bernadette kind of eventually, reconnecting, finding that spark. So it was a lot of interesting areas,
And Maria Simple wrote the book, but there are some differences. So what was sort of the balance for you in, giving fans of the book what they want, but also creating this new world?
That book is amazing, but it's all letters and emails and, it's the epistolary format of it isn't really a movie. People were like, how the hell do you make a movie out of that? So it was really just like any adaptation you would do. It's like, well, what's it about? That's what we were asking ourselves. And it was really just those things I just described. It probably could have been a lot about more, if it was 5 hours long. But it was like, this is what really resonated with us and what we thought we could tell a good cinematic story with. So.
And Cate, I think the thing I love most about Bernadette is that I'm not quite sure if she's losing herself or finding herself, which is really fun to watch. So for you, how do you describe Bernadette and the kind of journey that she's on?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, she's at that point, middle life, which I could not relate to at all. I hear it's a bit confusing and chaotic when I eventually get there. But also, she's the book deals with it tangentially, but the film does touch on it. But she's had a lot of grief in relation to childbirth, and she's finally had this glorious, talented, exquisite, unique child who's about to go off to boarding school, and is kind of living a parallel life to her husband. Thanks for dressing up today, Billy. You look fantastic.
This is my good T-shirt, Cate. I told you that before.
Yeah, very crunkly. And I think that produces a lot of absurdity and madness. I mean, we all do things, crazy things, when we're alone, kicking around the house. And she spends a lot of time by herself, which can send anyone crazy.
Yeah. And is there something that helped you get into Bernadette? She has a lot of mannerisms, you know, she'll pull her shirt up over her face, all these kind of little things that are expressions of her anxiety. What for you, like, helped you get into that mind space that she was in?
Well, I'm not someone who sort of makes all those decisions until you're on set. It's like being in dialogue with Rick, and we had a long rehearsal process with all of us talking about stuff. There's a lot of tics and mannerisms in Maria's writing. It's like it's littered with them. So the book was a wonderful resource, you know, in that way. But in the end, you have to be in the movie that you're, the story that you know, you're in a Richard Linklater movie. So, but I definitely think the Dark Glasses is a giveaway. And Maria, very kindly, it was such an amazing gesture of goodwill and support and insanity. She gave me they're actually the glasses that she wore when she got to Seattle. So I wore them in the movie, and yeah, and so that.
The wardrobe is a huge part of Bernadette, even down to the vest and all. You can kind of tell where she's at based on how she's dressed, and how she kind of presents the world.
I totally relate to the whole school run phobia. You know, like I found out there was this terrible thing that happened when we were, I won't say which school it was that my kids were at, but and one of the mothers who I became friends with when my kids were in primary school said, "Oh no, I heard some others talking about you and said you were really nice, but why couldn't you just brush your hair?" I was like, and I got, you know, and he's got really self-conscious. And it's not just because I'm an actor, but sometimes the school run is just an extension of all the, you know, annus horribilis that we all have. So I did brush my hair today, in case you were watching. No, but you know, I mean, it can be traumatic at 6 a.m. and you realize, oh no, I've got cornflakes all over my top, but it's too late to change, and you still got to go and drop the kids off. I'm totally behind the Dark Glasses.
And Emma, this is your first film. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
You are really captivating on screen, and watching you with, you know, with both of your TV parents or your movie parents is really dynamic. So what was the experience like for you, kind of digging into Bee, and because she's such a dynamic character?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that similarly to what Cate and Rick said, I think that the book was definitely my beginning source material, you know, getting to know who Bee was. I think definitely before reading the book contributed a lot to how the character really played on screen. And I think that our rehearsal time too, you know, because we always got to talk everything through, and so I developed Bee a lot, and so my character then, I think, went through the most development during our rehearsal period, which was supplemented by the book always.
And you know, Bernadette has stepped away from being an architect, and she's this creative genius, and she poured everything into Bee. You're sort of like her greatest piece of work. Mm-hmm. So what do you think Bee loves about Bernadette? Why is that relationship so important and close?
Well, I mean, I think that she admires her, and it's a very special relationship. But I think what Bee really sees in Bernadette is like a creative genius woman who is so loving. You know, I think that's Bee's known Bernadette her whole life as her mom, who's just nurtured her from the moment she was born, because Bee had health problems as a child, and I think Bernadette has treated her like, you know, she is her prize, she is her masterpiece, and so I think that definitely comes across in their relationship.
And Billy, you play Elgin, Bernadette's husband, and he's a genius in his own right.
That's right.
But maybe not so great at understanding people in a way that would help his wife.
It says you in the movie. I think he's confused as well, and where his wife has put her energy, and certainly values her as a formidable human being, and expects that she's going to make her own way, and that part of his role as her partner is to be in support of her finding her way, rather than him trying to curate it in a way that makes sense to him. And unfortunately, he just lets it go for too long, and at which point I think they start speaking different languages, and they're comfortable enough and focused enough in what they're doing that they let that lapse in dialogue go for so long that they lose contact with one another.
What I really saw was, and you see it in relationships every day, when you have two really creative or really smart people, and one is thriving and one maybe recedes into the background, and there's that ebb and flow. And I thought the dynamic in the film really kind of expressed that. Like, do you think people can really be at the top at the same time, or is there always have to be that balance?
Well, I think that, I mean, the movie explores it in some, you know, superficial ways. I do think the crucial part of that is a dialogue And so often people in relationships are reluctant to talk about their own insecurities and the ways in which the other relationship and the success of their partner might be a threat to them, because it's not a particularly enjoyable conversation to have, to say, you know, that award that's sitting on the mantle, it's starting to piss me off, okay? Because I don't have any of them and you've got 4 of them, you know. That's a confusing thing to have in a relationship. So if you have hyper ambitious people who are in the midst of successful lives, I think if you talk about it in a way that's open and honest, that gives you your best opportunity to continue it.
And Zoe, your character sort of jumps in as support for Elgin.
Oh, yeah.
But Sue Lin,
Trying to be really helpful.
yeah, she's too helpful maybe.
I speak the same language as Elgin.
But I know Sue Lin is one character that from the book has like a very different storyline. Like she changed quite a bit. So what did you sort of do to prepare? Because I think it's, from what I understand, it's very different than, the story goes in a different place.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really love Sue Lin. She's like nuts. I kind of think of her as like a seltzer bottle with like all these bubbles, like barely contained by the lid. But she's super manipulative and conniving and an opportunist. And what's not to love? I feel like she's really struggling to keep it all together and play it cool, and she's the farthest thing from cool. And yeah, I relate to that struggle.
And a lot of these characters have a hard time connecting with Bernadette, but she does find a connection with Troy and your character, Becky. So what do you think it is that she connects with and why she's able to find friendship there?
I think because Becky doesn't know Bernadette from Adam when she meets her, and she just meets somebody in a completely new, beautiful landscape. And so she's able to learn the language of Bernadette, you know, and I think that Bernadette is also, she's given a sort of blank slate to be whoever she wants to be with Becky and be interested in her work or not or whatever, and that there's no real stakes. So I think that she's allowed to be as lost or as found as she wants to be in her company, you know.
And from watching, I think Bernadette really connected to Becky's passion and that she was actually following the path that she was really drawn to, and Bernadette had kind of broken off of her creative path.
Yeah, it takes a lot of, I mean, you're at a certain point in your career as a field research scientist if you can make it to Antarctica. So I think Becky's really doing exactly what she loves to do, and I think it's just wonderful to be in the presence of that. You see a passion, you see a connection, you see an excitement for life. Yeah.
The theme that I really connected to the most is a creative person becomes a menace if they're not creating, which I thought was a really genius way of putting that. Can you guys, and this is open to everyone, can you guys relate to that as artists, as performers? Like if you're not engaged in a project, do you feel like you're kind of lost or no?
Oh, I do all the time. Are you kidding me? You're unemployed most of the time as an actor. And if you're not generating your own material, you've got no outlet for your interpretive art. And that leaves you kind of running in circles at home, or at least me.
Yeah, I think the film depicts someone who's off on the wrong track for what turns out to be 2 decades, but for a lot of complex reasons. But once she gets back on the right track, she's almost mystically drawn to Antarctica. These people kind of magically pop up out of the blue, like Troian's character, Becky, who help her. Like when you're on the right track, the world's helping you. When you're on the wrong track, the world's kind of thwarting you. So an artist's job is to be kind of engaged in doing something that you're supposed to be doing. So,
Hey, can you relate to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, even back to, didn't Frankenstein chase the monster all the way down to the Antarctic? I think it's no coincidence, I think, that Maria said it there. You have to go to the farthest point of the Earth, the most sort of formidable part of the planet to rediscover yourself. And she's someone who likes the impossible. But I think what I find really interesting about Bernadette is she's someone who hasn't processed failure. And I don't think you have to be a so-called creative person to relate to that. And I find it, without any spoiler alert, it's not till, I don't think, till LG really experiences failure himself that they can come back together. Because it's when you process failure that, what do you learn from success? I mean, really, I don't want to sound disingenuous. He doesn't teach you very much. You might earn a bit more, or, might get a few more pats on the back, but you don't learn much from it. But you learn an incredible, this is what I always tell my kids, are you listening? But you do learn from your failures, and if you don't own them and look at them, then you're doomed to repeat them. And the interesting thing I find too about the relationship with Becky is that Bernadette has been talking her ass off for the whole movie to a virtual assistant. And all of a sudden, she's in this silent world, and Becky says, just do something. Come on, hold this test tube. Let's do, it's practical. And sometimes the way out of a hole is simply to do something. Don't talk about it, just do it. That's a bit Nike, doesn't it? There's a bit of a...
Just do it.
Yeah.
Successful slogan for a reason. It's real. Anxiety and mental illness are sort of, definitely throughout the film. And one way I think the anxiety manifests is in the home. So take me through creating that set and all the different little nooks and crannies and the way that Bernadette was expressing her creativity in her home that was both just this beautiful piece of art, but also like great expectations just kind of falling apart.
The house they live in, Straightgate, is another character in the movie. That was so fun till we found this old kind of decrepit house, but we had to do a lot of, production design. And the idea was that even though Bernadette's not practicing her official art, you can't turn off that creativity. So you see it all over, whether it's pencils around a doorway or those books up the stairway. There's all these kind details, of arty ideas that wouldn't fit other places, but they feel very indigenous to that house, So she's very in touch with that. But the house is kind of falling apart. It is.
I think also all of her projects around the house, she's got different things that you can see where she started and kind of fallen off of that, where she'll invest her energy for a little bit and then she'll go, she'll stop and she'll lose interest in it. And it kind of shows the little spouts of how she does that and just kind of moves on from it. And,
But the roof is leaking.
Yeah, unfinished.
The roof is definitely leaking.
Yeah.
But I did fall in love with the house. It was another character, and I wasn't sure if that was another great piece of architecture she was creating almost in its own right.
Bit by bit, but I think when you are a bit depressed, you do, as Emma's saying, you lose energy, you lack direction, and I think that's definitely something you can say about Bernadette.
Yeah. So what was the vibe like on set? You have a lot of different characters here, personalities. Anybody, any fun stories?
I'm not the right person to ask because I hope it's good, but I'm trying to make a movie.
Relaxed.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's a Richard Linklater film.
We're all just it was hanging out. It was very relaxed, and obviously since this is my first movie, I always felt very welcomed on set, and my other cast members always had my back if I was unsure of something or if I had any questions. It was nice. It was very, I would say there was a lot of conversation throughout the whole filmmaking process, which, as I've come to know, is how Rick makes his films, is just a conversation. I feel like I got to contribute to that even as a young person. I felt like I had a voice filming.
Yeah. But also it was very bonding. We got caught in a storm together, in a hurricane at sea. So that was a bit of a bonding moment on set.
Not by choice.
Where were you?
I would say cut, and half the crew would wander off and throw up and come back. Finally, it's we can't film anymore.
It was off the coast of Greenland.
Yeah, we were totally at the North Pole. Yeah,
we couldn't get back into the fjord.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Troian, your scenes are all in, Antarctica, but where were those films?
They were, there's a World Heritage site called the Ilulissat Glacier that we got to sail to. And it was breathtaking. It was breathtaking while the storm was there as well, but it was just beautiful in the days of calm that we got to shoot, and I just felt so lucky to be there and be welcomed in, because I was sort of like the kid that came late to summer camp. They'd been shooting for 2.5 months, and then suddenly I showed up with my little glasses and my beanie, and I was like, I'm ready to go. And everybody's like, who are you? And I was just so warmly welcomed into the fold, and it really was like a family that I got to be caught in a storm with. So you can't ask for much more.
Did you guys get any kayaking tips?
Oh, but I mean,
lessons.
yeah, but they were going like, Troian, Cate, come back, and we're going towards the icebergs because as soon as we got into the water, these whales started going by, and I've lived in Australia all my life, and all my friends come over and visit. They go, oh my God, were you out in the harbour today? This whale and her calf just went. I thought, shit, I've missed it again. And finally, I was in the kayak. It's like I'm getting close to this whale. It was it was amazing.
We had to hold the roll so we could go see the whales a little bit closer. Because when are you going to get another
filmmaking.
chance?
They were just curious what we were doing. They were just sort of circling us all
What
day.
kind of whales were they?
Was it a humpback?
The whale
I
kind.
know, it was incredible.
I love humpback.
And how many have you seen? Many.
Because you know what?
I was like,
Sulin didn't get to go.
Well, Billy, you were the one who was driving the Zodiac, because I know I've gotten that question, like, was it real? Was somebody else, like, he was doing it, and I was in the Zodiac with him driving the Zodiac.
Did you feel safe?
Next question.
I do all my own stunts.
You
And I shouldn't.
learned well. It was good. It was good.
I appreciate that. It's not actually the easiest thing to do.
No, I
They're
couldn't have
kind
done
of,
it. I could not have done it.
And you want to look like you know what you're doing, and standing while you're doing.
Billy's good.
Said you want
Billy's
to
very good
look
at
like you know.
faking like he knows
but
what
it
he's
was-
doing. That's the key to acting.
Yeah, that's right. You play a character who doesn't know what they're doing. So Elgin doesn't know how to operate a Zodiac. So in that way, I
Billy
could play
does.
him very naturally.
There are so many, like I said, themes and conversations that can spring from this film, from sustainability and conservation to mental illness to just anxiety and parenting and all of. So for you guys, what was your takeaway after you left? And you're like, okay, this is really going to be meaningful in this way.
I don't think you can be out amongst those icebergs and not realize how fragile the planet is. I mean, it's astonishing. So, I mean, that was, and also never get caught in a hurricane.
Never get caught in a hurricane. Yeah, I was actually just flipping through the news yesterday, and I saw this satellite photo of where we were filming, and it said that Ilulissat has lost the most water. It's melted the most on record this year than it has in the past. And I was just thinking, how lucky we were to have seen it in that form, and what it looks like now, and also to see how quickly, like you said, that landscape is changing, and that it's never going to look that way again. Yeah, not to bring it down, but
I brought it up for a reason, because it is, I mean, right at the top of the movie, that's sort of the conversation, is like, we should see this before it's not there anymore. It's real.
I think there's something to be said about how Bernadette is treated throughout the film. You mentioned like the anxiety, mental illness portion. I think that the way that not only people around her treat her, but her own husband, at some point is checking the cabinets and is wondering, is she okay, and doesn't really dig any deeper than that. And I think that that's a conversation to be had that we briefly touch on in the movie.
Yeah. And that whole fine line between genius and insanity, I think it's fun to kind of dance around.
Do you walk that line?
Every day, Kate.
Every day.
Every
You're not alone.
day. We do have a couple of questions before we get out of here. The first one comes from Twitter. Abby Mayrad wants to ask, one of the things Bernadette says to B that really was impactful was the sooner you learn it's on you to make your life interesting, the better off you'll be. Kate, is there a certain word or advice or statement from your mom that she told you that stuck with you?
Oh, use sunscreen. And my mum is big on respect, being self-respect, and therefore respect of others. She was big on respect.
Does anybody else have commentary on that whole, the idea of like it's up to you to make your life interesting and dynamic, or any personal kind of ties to that?
Yeah, my parents said we were never allowed, I have a younger sister, and we were never allowed to use the word bored. My parents are both visual artists. Who actually, my dad actually is the glass blower. So it was funny, all the glass references in Seattle.
And your mother's name?
And my mom's name is actually Sue Lynn.
Spelled a little different.
Yes, the white Ohioan spelling.
S-U-E.
Suellynn. Yeah, but so my sister, so that's actually a word that's not in our vocabulary. Yeah, but I mean, you still, there are moments where I have to conjure, like, okay, what to do now? Don't go to the phone.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like inspiration and ambition come in waves. And so it's just sort of like when you're not on an uptick, what do you do to sort of wait until you get back there? So I think, again, people are really going to enjoy this film. I know I did. And if you guys want to check it out, Where'd You Go, Bernadette hits theaters on August 16th. Thank you guys again for joining me today. And put your hands together for the cast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.